Hello and welcome to Afternoon Tea with Karen. Here's something I've already been warning you about.
Well, the rising anti-Semitism we have seen on our streets and, of course, university campuses in recent weeks has led to calls for tougher hate speech laws. Those calls have been quite persistent since October the 7th. Well, Attorney General Mark Dreyfus is reportedly drafting new laws which would criminalise serious cases of vilification based on a person's race, sexuality, gender, disability or religion. The Age reported today that the bill would, quote, strengthen existing laws while creating new offences carrying criminal rather than civil penalties and is likely to cover deliberate acts that intend to incite violence or cause harm. Now, I think we've all been on something of a unity ticket that something needs to be done about hate speech laws. My problem is that we already have hate speech laws, they just haven't been applied. And I cannot work out what they think new federal laws will actually achieve.
Oh, I know. So I'll fill you in. So back in 2016, before Mark Dreyfus was the Attorney General, a Shorten Labor government will appoint a full-time LGBTI discrimination commissioner to the Australian Human Rights Commission. Labor's new LGBTI Commissioner will be able to work towards ensuring our schools, workplaces, and communities are free from discrimination too. So in 2016, we are not using the Q or the A or the plus. And Mark Dreyfus has been getting busy with that school thing. Now, from Labor, we go to the Greens. Sexual orientation, gender identity, and intersex. So these are their principles that you must agree on if you want to be a member of the Greens. Now, firstly, I'll just point out that back in 2017, when the Greens launched the LGBT plus network, launched by one of the founders of Queer Greens Victoria, Sean Mackay. So, in the third paragraph down, the Australian Greens policy on sexual orientation, gender identity, and intersex affairs. So, in 2017, we're just LGBT now plus. Hence, this is a 2017 document, but it got updated in 2021. So when we get to their aims, we're using the whole LGBTQIA+, a community-led and developed whole-of-government LGBTQIA+ strategy to guide policy on LGBTQIA+ issues across the government, which has already happened. This is what's in the councils and in the state government. So it's about inclusion, apparently, but really it's a chapter of the Greens. So, number 24, a dedicated commissioner for sexual orientation, gender identity, and intersex rights at the Australian Human Rights Commission with equivalent powers to existing commissioners. 25, the establishment of a federal office for the LGBTI people as part of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet and supported by a separate minister or parliamentary secretary. 26, anti-discrimination laws for people with diverse sexualities, gender identities and intersex variations to be consistent with the Yogyakarta principles on the application of international human rights law in relation to sexual orientation, gender identity and other international human rights instruments. I will just show you that. So this is the 2017 one. The first one was in 2006. And what they do is they go through all the United Nations rights that they can use to create legislation. Another one of their instruments, this one, Only Adults, Good Practices in Legal Gender Recognition for Youth, was commissioned Denton's lawyers was commissioned to do it, and that's why it's commonly called the Denton's documents. So basically, some people got together and found one they were missing. So the Conventions on the Rights of the Child. So that's what 26 is about. 27, the removal of religious exemptions from anti-discrimination law. We just flash past that document. 28, programs and legislation to end hate speech or vilification on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, intersex status, or sex characteristics. The removal, 31, of discrimination against transgender, gender diverse, and intersex athletes in competitive sports. So, yeah, and it was amended in 2021, which is the same year that it got into Ballarat Council and started spreading across the state. So, from there, we have the Trans Justice Project. Now, deliver your fueling hate report to your local MP. This has already happened. The activists got together, they got some results from a survey, they put it in a report, and they took it round to all the members of parliament in the country. What we want is actually a lot more than that. So we're going to have a squiz at the fueling hate report. And from here we get the full report. The report is the largest ever investigation into anti-trans hate in Australia, compiling data from over 3,099 survey responses, including 1,309 responses from people in the trans community. Yep, and it's an anti-trans report. So the other people are non-binary and gender fluid. The results show us that anti-trans abuse, harassment and violence in Australia is widespread and is escalating rapidly. So to address those shocking results, introduce federal and state anti-vilification laws to protect the entire LGBTQIA plus whatever else community from abuse, harassment, vilification and violence. Work together with social media companies to stop the spread of anti-trans disinformation and anti-LGBTQIA plus hate groups. Strengthen media regulations to ensure greater accountability for news outlets that promote anti-trans disinformation. Investigate community-led interventions to curb LGBTQIA plus extremism and de-radicalisation approaches, provide funding for further research into the causes and impacts of anti-trans abuse, harassment, vilification and violence, and strategies for addressing them. And here it is. They're the people that took it to Parliament. About the report. In April 2023, Trans Justice Project and the Victorian Pride Lobby engaged researchers and advisors to investigate the prevalence and possible escalation of transphobia in Australia. We investigate transphobia by asking about abuse, harassment, vilification, and violence, which we summarised as anti trans hate. We divided the survey into questions about what people had seen and experienced online and in person. The survey was open to anyone over the age of 18 from any state or territory. It ran for 9 days in April 2023. It was promoted on social media by project team members, community controlled organisations, civil society groups, and community members. It took 3 minutes on average to complete, 85% completion rate. The survey received 3,099 responses and 1,309 of them were trans. So that's throughout all of Australia, 1,309 trans responses. So we've got some infographics, some key findings. And yep, this is the best bit. They're references that they use. They're newspapers and magazine articles. And it's an anti-trans thing, and they've got marriage equality postal survey. Anti-trans disinformation. The outlet also argued that trans women have an unfair advantage in sports, which is also unsupported by evidence. In the months since Kelly J. Keen's tour, there has been an escalation of attacks on LGBTQIA plus events such as drag story time. In February, there was a bomb threat against a Sydney library holding a drag story time event, and by May, at least 9 Victorian councils had called off similar events due to threats of violence from the far right. Right, so most of the people were between 25 and 35, and in Victoria, hmm, oops, sorry, we've got the non-binary people, trans women, so there, here we go. So trans people described a variety of online anti-trans hate, such as microaggressions, deliberate misgendering, insults, ridicule, humiliation, intimidation and trolling, defamation and hate speech, including slurs, pylon, doxing and stalking, threats of violence and sexual assault, death threats, incitement to commit suicide, incitement to commit genocide. The genocide thing is really important to them as well because that goes with the United Nations stuff. Then they're a protected group. Yeah. Now, just a quick reminder about Sean, founder of Queer Greens Victoria. Here he is with, on the left, Rachel Evans from the Socialist Alliance and Belinda Coates from Ballarat Council. So, from 2 years ago,
Well, at the moment, the threshold for hate speech is quite high. And what we do know from what the government has committed, they're going to look at lowering the threshold to make civil and criminal vilification easier to prove so that people who are subjected to vilification are able to get better justice through our court system. So, the government's committed to introducing legislation to ban the public display of Nazi symbols in the first half of next year. And this is important not only for the Jewish community, but also for our communities as well, too. We were targeted by Nazis, and I think it's extremely important that we stand in solidarity with Jewish communities against the display of these neo-Nazi symbols that incite hate behaviour. As to the other portion of work, so addressing our anti-vilification laws, there's a less clear time frame on that. And one of the things that we'll be doing is pressing the government to ensure that this is addressed as soon as possible. Nobody should have to suffer a day more of hate.
and Alex Greenwich from New South Wales. He's got a cute dog. Anyway, that'll do. See you later. Bye.